The Six Nations and all my predictions after 1 week. I'm StattoJoe, you're a legend for watching this video, and if you're new to the channel, why not hit that subscribe button? I'm looking to get 50 subs before the end of the Six Nations, so if you want to help me out with that, I would really appreciate that. We're going to look at the results from last week, talk a couple of stats, a couple of impressions, then preview this week's fixtures. So the first game this last weekend was Italy versus France, the only game this week that went the way that I expected, but France were unbelievable, and it's just, it does scare me as an Ireland fan for the game on Sunday. If we just look at some of the stats, and I actually think some of the rugby stats are really interesting. One of the things I've noticed is that time and possession, it doesn't really matter, but it's really cool. Usually adds up to under 50 minutes. So of the 80-minute game, the ball's only in possession for just over half, which is pretty cool. But overall, France were better. But you see, Italy had more possession, but it's what did they do with the ball? Nothing much. France just, oh, they were like attacking wise, just fantastic. Antoine Dupont, mwah, excellent. And you look at Teddy Thomas, Gail Ficou, all these players they were just so great on the counter running, and some of the running was fantastic. Points per visit to 22 is really interesting. Look at France; they were getting up just over 4 points per visit to at least 22, which is a crazy number. So you're looking at they were scoring just like they're basically scoring a try almost every visit to 22, which is cool. If we look at the overall stats, though, there it says it really all. Italy's handling errors 16. That's going to be costly. I think what's really interesting when we look at some of the matches, I think one thing that really stood out to me in the games was how the penalties you concede really dictate how the game goes for that period of time. Um, Italy had a good scrum, which is that's always encouraging. Italy's scrum's always been relatively decent. Where they struggle really is moving the ball and getting that creative flow and scoring tries is really their big problem. But yeah, like overall, it was a game where France were just exhilarating to watch, and it was really great to see them play such great rugby. Then the second game, where we went to England and Scotland shocked everyone and beat England 11-6. England didn't seem to show up, and I need to give a shout out to Jack. So on the Facebook page, if you follow the Facebook page, there's plenty of posts about football, but there's also some rugby posts, and Jack runs the rugby side of things, and we were chatting about this game, and he made a really interesting point to me, and that was England's game was so focused on kicking and kicking it high that at one stage they had what could have been a 7-on-3, and it was just inside England's half. And instead of opting to play the numbers, because they were so used to kicking from their own half, they went and kicked it. And I think the game plan just wasn't right for England. I mean, all credit to Scotland, who were fantastic on Saturday, but I think England's kicking game and the overall game plan really let them down. And also, a lot of their players hadn't played for weeks because Saracens are in the Championship. That hasn't been playing recently. So yeah, overall, that was what was happening. But I think what's really interesting here, so we looked at France and we saw they were getting about 4.27 points per visit to 22. England none. So England only spent 2 minutes, just under 3 minutes in Scotland's 22, but they didn't get any points from that. So their attacks weren't fruitful. They seemed a bit slow. They didn't seem to have that attacking edge. Maybe not playing Ford and Farrell was a mistake as well. I mean, we could hypothesize till the cows come home, but I think that was part of the problem for them. Overall, though, I think Scotland were, most of the possession in their half, in England's half. They had a good amount of possession in England's 22, and they enjoyed the majority of possession and territory. What I really want to just say is penalties conceded. I do think that makes a big big difference. Penalties conceded, yeah. So England conceding 15 penalties. That's just horrendous discipline. Scotland only 6. Yeah, that's just not. At that international level, you can't be conceding 15 penalties in a game. It's just not good enough. So that was a big shock. So there was the first indication of my predictions go out the window. Then the second game that had all my predictions go out the window was Sunday's game between Wales and Ireland, 21-16. A game that was entirely dictated, I think, by Peter O'Mahony's red card early on. I think if that hadn't happened, we could have seen a different result. But for playing with 14 men, Ireland, maybe this is biased for me, but I thought Ireland were fantastic with the lesser man. And that's not me taking away from Wales. I think that's more that Ireland really came out then and they knew they had to put in a shift when they went a man down. Wales themselves, great result for them to get through. It's good for Wayne Pivac to get that win. Maybe they can push on from here and do a bit better. And overall, Ireland dominated possession, although a lot of their play was in their own half, so it doesn't really do much for them. And they weren't scoring enough when they were in Wales' 22, as we can see there. 0.88 points per 22 visit, and they did spend a lot of time in the Welsh 22. Wales only spent a minute in Ireland's 22, and Ireland were in Wales's 22 for 7. So maybe Ireland should look at this game and actually think it's an opportunity missed. But I think this game was really dominated by penalties, and I think it really told the story. So we'll go to penalties conceded. It won't necessarily tell the full picture. So it was very even. So it was actually 11-11, but there was ebbs and flows. So at the start of the game, first 20 minutes, Ireland conceded 4 penalties, I think, and then had the red card. And then after O'Mahony got sent off, Wales conceded a lot of penalties, and Ireland actually went 13-6 in front. And then at the start of the second half, Ireland conceded a lot of penalties, and it was mistakes from penalties that led to the Wales tries, and then Wales conceded a penalty that brought Ireland back into the game, and then it was a mistake from Billy Burns at the very, very end that led to the game being finished and Wales winning. So my predictions have been totally thrown up the left. In my head, I had France, England, and Ireland winning this week for the first week. So let's talk about this week. So we have game week 2 is this week before a break. So we have Italy play England. I think any other result than an England win with 4 tries or more would be a surprise to me. I think England need to react. Italy will give them a game probably for the first 20 minutes. I think that's going to be a thing we'll see, is that the first 20 minutes will be a bit tight. And then as the games go on, it'll become more and more open, and the other team will score plenty of tries. So I do think we'll get an England win there. Scotland play Wales. I think Scotland could win, and I've said this before, but this is Scotland's year, I think, to really press on for first or second, especially when you look at, for me, it feels like they're peaking, while other teams are sort of transitioning or leading up to that peak. So I think Scotland need to take full advantage of the squad they have. I think it'll be a really tight game on Saturday night, but I do think Scotland will win by 6 points, I'm going to say. And then Ireland versus France. I don't see anything other than a France win here, which breaks my heart, but I think France will get the Grand Slam this year. There's a spoiler for my predictions for the rest of the tournament. But I just, so there's no Sexton, I believe, no Murray for Ireland, so it's a new 9-10 combination. I don't know. I just, France are so good. Like, they're so good. Like, I don't even need to present stats. They're a joy to watch, and they're so good. So I don't see anything other here than a France win. Will it be tight? I would hope it will be tight. In my head, I have, like, there could be 13 points between them here, but let's go France to win by 5. So there are my predictions. What are your predictions for this week? Let me know in the comments, and I'll reply to you. I promise I'll reply, and I'll let you know what I think about your predictions. And yeah, thumbs up in the video if you enjoyed. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to this week's matches. I think we're getting a really good weekend of rugby. And as I said earlier, subscribe if you're new. It would really, really help me out. And guys, have a great weekend. And I'll see you tomorrow on Sunday.